Welcome to IBIS Weather. This is Sarah. This is the update for September 5th, 2015. We don't have a whole lot to cover as we no longer have Tropical Storm Lorena. She has officially disintegrated and became just a remnant. Of course, Mexico is still dealing with heavy rain and areas of heavy tropical rain. And of course, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas will also be dealing with some of that. But that is one less storm to look at. So we still have Hurricane Kiko to look at. And then, of course, Invest 91L, which is basically the one on everybody's mind. So let's go ahead and get started with Kiko. So this is one of the satellite views of her. If you look over here where the mouse is, you'll see kind of the areas of where the remnants of Lorena is. Definitely heavy cloud cover over New Mexico and Texas, East New Mexico, West Texas, and up into the Panhandle, which is not surprising. You can sort of see a little bit of some circulation over here. She never actually made official landfall in the sense of what we typically think. Obviously, tell it to the people feeling the impacts of her. They probably disagree. But going based off of the historical definition of what landfall is, she didn't do that. And of course, we have our little Hurricane Kiko over here, still rotating and getting closer to the Hawaii island chain, which is over here. She is still a small hurricane, which is good news, can be good news and a bad news. Definitely still, she's got some good outflow and inflow, and she's definitely got that, you know, saw look, angry saw look that we do see with a hurricane when they form and when they're at their peak. So this is again a little bit of a closer up satellite view of her. You can definitely see she's got a nice symmetrical eye. She's got a healthy banding around her. She's definitely got a little bit of that shrimp look. But again, she is a relatively small storm, so this is good news. Of course, for the cone, obviously, we've been talking about how Hawaii has to be a little bit worried about where Hurricane Kiko will go, which is also a very important thing to bring up. So, looks like the Hawaii island chain will still probably get some kind of impacts. Right now, it looks like the Big Island will be spared, at least where her center will be, but can't be said the same for the other chains to the northwest of it. Again, this cone is only to show you where the center of the storm may go. So it's not counting any of the other things. Now, there's been some talk about how as she'll continue to kind of go northwest, that there will be some wind shear, so that should kind of help push some of the worst weather away from the chain of islands, which is hopefully a good thing. But that's currently what I'm thinking and what the modeling is showing and suggesting. So we'll hope that is true. But still, it's probably safe to say that a good chunk of Hawaii will at least get some impacts to a certain degree, whether that's just a rough surf or some rain and some wind. Again, to let you guys know, she will be a tropical storm as she gets closer to the islands because those cooler waters she'll be tracking into. She has regained major strength again. And has, still being a major hurricane. I think last I heard she's category 4. Let's look at her wind speed here. So yes, 130 mile per hour winds. She's moving west northwest at 10 miles per hour. Again, as you can see, she is, like I said, a relatively small storm. I don't think there's a lot of worry about her physical size growing, which is good news. So hopefully, the Hawaii will be mostly spared. But it's still not a bad idea to make sure that you are getting prepared in case the track changes between now and middle of next week, as she'll be closest to Hawaii Tuesday through Wednesday. Um, so you guys have some days to get prepared and kind of continue to watch this. Again, the track could change a little bit. We could see the cone shift a little bit. Again, the cone is not counting all possible impacts. She is a relatively small storm, though, so is looking better for Hawaii in the sense of you guys not getting full-fledged, full-on hurricane, with since they're going over you guys necessarily, except maybe the more northwestern islands might be a small risk of that. But the cone will shrink as we get closer to middle of next week. So there's a good chance that the rest of the chain of islands could totally get out of the cone, meaning no one's expecting the sensor to go over. And she will be a tropical storm at that point anyhow, so you guys certainly won't be getting the worst, and this should not be a record-breaking storm, which is good news, and I'm sure that Hawaii can feel better about. So again, so far this season, so far so good with no major landfalling hurricanes thus far. Let's hope we can keep that track as we continue to climb the peak of hurricane season. Obviously, key messages for Hurricane Kiko. She's forecast to get close to the islands early to middle portion of next week. Of course, rain and wind is a possibility. We still just don't know exactly what you can expect in terms of like how much rain, how fast of the wind, how many places in Hawaii you're going to feel it, etc. So something we'll continue to track as we get closer to that part of middle of next week. I'm sure as we get closer to that, probably Monday, we'll start seeing, maybe even Sunday, watches and warnings going up, which we'll definitely be posting. And I will be sharing also on my Facebook page. So please be sure to like follow me there. Link is on my YouTube page for that. And of course, share, like, and comment as well to help get the word out. And then, of course, earlier is the reasonable time of arrival of tropical storm first winds. So again, not counting hurricane for us, she's not expected to be a hurricane as she gets closer to the islands. So the big islands should start feeling possible impacts around 8 a.m. on Monday and through Monday evening. And then, of course, middle part to the end of the chain of islands will start feeling it Monday night to Tuesday morning as the earliest reasonable time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the spaghetti plots for Kiko. So as you can definitely see, it does show a good portion of them are still taking the center again, not entire storm. She is a relatively small storm, but the center to the north, which is a good thing. There's still a few layers where she's kind of threading around Hawaii a little bit, and then some to kind of have her going over the middle to the end of the island. This is for Euro, but this is better than having seen a cohesive amount of the model taking her over Hawaii directly as well. So this is good. Again, she will be a tropical storm, is expected to be a tropical storm when she passes over. For GFS, which again, as we mentioned yesterday, as you know, they has had a couple bad years. It doesn't seem to have a lot of cohesion with what it can do, and not a lot of agreement among the different ensembles here. So you definitely see kind of a widespread as we get out a few days ahead from here, about starting around 96 hours and then out to almost 200 hours. Um, so definitely some take her even more, more of a north and, turning northeast from away from the islands, which I'm sure the islands would love, which Hawaii would love that for be the case. Some take it south of the islands. Again, good chunk of them do take her since they're over the islands. But right now, GFS just has not been doing a great job the past few years of this. So I'm leaning more toward probably we'll see some similar track more to the Euro as she gets closer. And then we'll go ahead and switch over to Invest 91L. There's been a lot of talk about it. So, as you know, a couple days ago, a lot of talk and hype about, there's going to be this massive hurricane coming and slamming into the southeast coast of the US. And of course, Caribbean and the Bahamas and possibly Cuba and all that. And now the models are kind of backing away from that. Some of the models are showing it fizzling out, which a lot of people putting a lot of merit to and believing that that will be the case. Which the National Hurricane Center is not really showing that right now. So we'll continue to see what happens over the weekend. But there's been a lot of talk about that, saying, "Oh, nothing's going to form. It's going to be a dud of a system, etc., etc." We'll kind of get into why she has not been. What will be Gabrielle is not doing super great. We do have definitely some talk about that. But again, this is kind of one of the satellite views. So as you can see, kind of over here, it does look like some convection is trying to fire up more over here than what was shown earlier today. So that is encouraging signs for her formation. And of course, you do see some storms firing up over here, which we talked about in the past as well. And of course, some over here and close to the US. This is part of a frontal boundary that has stayed there, causing some rain and storms to impact Florida. And of course, South America is also getting some storms as well as Central America, which is part of the rainy season. So we'll continue to see what this system does. It looks like she's starting to get some convection, so we should be able to stack. We just don't know. So let's go ahead and get a little bit more deep into what she could do and what I'm thinking in terms of what we can expect from Invest 91L as we continue to track forward. This is another satellite image that I like because Polar forest is a little bit more fun to look. You can definitely see convection firing over here, so more toward the back end of the wave. You can definitely see a lot of moisture over here firing up, and then some convection also popping up here. So looks like it's to kind of have two areas competing to see where she kind of can hook her claws into formation going forward. But she's still definitely sloppy and has quite a ways to go before we have an officially a tropical depression or a tropical storm. Apologize if you guys can hear the sirens in the background. I do live near a busy street, so unfortunately, sometimes it happens. But this is, of course, the National Hurricane Center and where they have designated Invest 91L. So it has gone down a little bit, so 40% for 48 hours to 70% for 7 days of development. Again, as I mentioned right now, as I mentioned before, with a tropical system, you really do need multiple ingredients and not just all the ingredients to be right for it, but some of it's just plain luck. So while her upper level winds are, favorable for development, she's right now fighting off dry air, which we'll see in a moment, that I have as a map to show you guys, which is kind of squashing her and keeping her from being able to really fully form as the way we would expect. So this could hinder her for the next few days, but they think that we could still see progression to a depression or tropical storm early next week as the system continues to move west. She is moving slow, so that is in her favor of trying to develop something. She needs more time to kind of sit and simmer over the warm Atlantic currents. Um, and she'll be close to the Lesser Antilles by the middle to latter part of next week. And of course, we encourage you guys to monitor this. And of course, areas west of this, and of course, the U.S. coastline should also worry as well, and kind of continue to monitor to see where she might go. As you guys know, I love to kind of show the wind a little bit and direction. So this again is at the surface level here. So you do see again sort of two areas of circulation. Again, not super tight knit, close circulation as you would expect with hurricane. I'll show you Kiko in a moment to kind of give you the comparison. But we do see two areas. It looks like they're trying to fight a forming a lower level closed circulation off. This one's looking a little better. This one's still a bit elongated. I think this is the one that we've been kind of watching a little bit more. Obviously, this one still is not perfect, but does look like that she is still trying to form and stack to kind of give you a comparison of what the winds would look like for an active hurricane. And what we want to see is this is Kiko over here. And you can definitely see this is a lower level close off circulation, very tight, very ferocious in bringing the winds to rotate around it. You can even see the eye essentially there because there's no winds blowing in that area. So this is what they typically would look like when they form as a hurricane. So the remnants of Lorena is over here, so there's still some level of circulation. Some might say that's even a little bit healthier looking than what 91L is showing all the way over here. But this one's definitely trying to get itself together in its elongated areas as well. And of course, it does look like we have more waves that are going to be coming off the coast. Again, as mentioned, I think it was Tuesday, there has been some talk about we might see something's trying to form in the Gulf and over here by Yucatan and all that in the Caribbean. So we do see, of course, Pacific is popping as always with tropical systems. But we can definitely see some areas like over here that looks a little elongated, trying to maybe get some circulation west of Florida. And then we're seeing some winds starting to bend a little bit over here, so we'll have to kind of watch that. But again, to get back to 91, Invest 91L, does look like there are right now two areas trying to compete, which goes along with one of the satellite views I showed you that also showed there are two areas of convection firing up. So this would check out and make sense. So spaghetti models, of course. So I know some people have been kind of showing not the ensembles, but some of like the individual model runs that you can find. I don't like to really show those because I think the ensembles is more important to show, kind of showing what all of them are thinking and the different variations and versions, what they count in different environmental factors and things like that to see. So for obviously for Invest 91L, this is euro. So the euro is still, despite what some people want to say, is showing some limited development still and definitely taking over the Antilles and by the Virgin Islands and even some of Puerto Rico and getting close to Hispaniola. And that's a pretty good cluster for in the grants of that. So, and this was the 6 p.m. Ensembles ran for it. So this was current for this evening. So, it'll become interesting to continue to see what happens with it. For the, again, for GFS, as I mentioned, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, you can see some of the squiggly lines here, which makes no sense at all for why it would do that. Again, really no cohesiveness with thinking of where it might go. So I'm still trying to take it out to turn out to sea, scraping by. I mean, a decent amount still scraping north of the Antilles and the Virgin Islands. So I'm taking it further south down, closer to South America. So we're just kind of have to wait and see. Again, like I said, GFS just hasn't been doing super great uh, this year, or really in the past few seasons. So, I would expect that we'll probably see something more in line with Euro than GFS with this. So as we will with, I think, with Kiko. So this is again a Euro. So again, kind of the model ensemble. So you can kind of see here some of the area where people are thinking, well, it might fizzle out, it might not form, which we'll get into in a moment why they're thinking that, which will kind of loop back to the model runs as well. But we do see a good number of them try and take it closer to the Antilles. Some of them have it kind of dying off before it gets to the Antilles. Still have some trying to take it out to sea. So we just kind of have to continue to watch to see. But I mean, that's still a good amount of models suggesting that's going to continue track west before it peters out, if it peters out. And that is because they're thinking it might peter out because it hasn't been looking great. Because all this dry air that you see is the oranges and yellows here on the screen. So if you look at the kind of like the white and gray clouds over here, this is where it's trying to form. So again, you can kind of see where some of the convection, builds up, it fades, builds up, it fades. You can even see if you are in the southeast or Gulf Coast, some of the dry air that has come in through that frontal mountain area that's sitting out here. So that's always fun to see as well. They're thinking that all this dry air and Saharan dust is kind of choking the development. And if it continues to choke the development as it continues to make its very slow jog to the west, it might get into less favorable conditions. It might not be able to fight this off. Um, which is, a possibility. As I say, anything and everything is possible. I mean, this might not form into Gabrielle. This is a possibility, but this is a possibility that will as well. And typically, storms like this or wannabe storms like this, we see being kind of, I don't want to use the word dramatic because it's not like the storm is choosing to be dramatic, but when they kind of have this long journey and kind of what feels like we're watching and waiting forever is usually indicative that if it does become something, it's definitely going to be a bit of a more of a concerning storm. Just again, kind of just the nature of following them and seeing how these behave going forward. So, at this point, I would say give it 50-50 chance either way. Obviously, the National Hurricane Center is giving more favorable chances, so we'll just continue to kind of monitor over this weekend. I know earlier this week I was saying, well, private tropical depression by this weekend. Here we are on Friday night before the weekend, and now they're saying, well, it might not be until early next week, so we'll just have to continue to wait and see. Does look like some of the dry air is kind of like breaking up a little bit. So if she can continue to fight it and, not let herself get choked off by it and enter slightly more favorable conditions, she might have a fighting shot at actually becoming a tropical cyclone and have that genesis that she wants. But again, we just don't know. And that kind of goes back to the fact that since she's not a tropical cyclone. Like she's not a depression, she's not a tropical storm, and she's certainly not a hurricane. Again, goes back to the fact that the models, so some of them talk about the models showing it kind of peter out and all that is definitely, I think that definitely plays a role into it. Again, they do better when it is a tropical cyclone, whether that's, a storm or a hurricane. And obviously, we have not had anyone flying into it, sampling the atmosphere, so we just don't have usually, as I say, isn't until we get that official formation of the closed low, then we can really start seeing some better models. Um, and then that's even more true when you think about them flying in and sampling the environment in the storm and around a storm as well. And they're not going to fly into this right now. She's still too far off and away um, from, being able to fly safely in case of an emergency or anything along those lines. I mean, she's still many miles out in the middle of the sea. So, you know, the models don't have a good hold on her. We've seen this with some other storms in the past as well, where they just think one thing, um, of it, oh, it's going to be, horrible, or it's going to be super weak, and the models can be wrong with it, especially when you consider the fact that we're just not getting the information put into them as, we would like. Maybe in the future one day they'll be able to, fly drones in to the faraway places in the ocean and do sampling. That would be great and amazing and an excellent use of technology, in my opinion. But until we are able to do that, we just kind of have to be in, again, this annoying sit and wait kind of thing. And of course, you see all these people in here, all these people having differing opinions, and some hyping up, saying it's inevitable that, we're going to see this form into a massive hurricane that will be devastating. And then, of course, you see those who would say, well, if it does form into a hurricane, it's going to stay well off any land, away from land, be a fish storm. And then you have those of us saying that this wave has no chance. And really, the truth lies somewhere in the middle of all that. Any of this is possible. It's all equally on the table. And like I said, until, we have that, until it either finishes forming into, what it wants to be, or it peters out, we just don't know what's going to happen with it. So, again, we'll just have to sit and wait and see what this one brings forth, and just continue to monitor and be monitoring over the weekend as well. And then, of course, continue to cover Hurricane Kiko, which, is concerned, to a certain degree for Hawaii. Obviously, even tropical storms can be devastating and horrible. Um, so again, any key, I guess, key items that I like to end it off with. Obviously, if you're in Hawaii, take heed. You have until like early to middle of next week before she gets close enough to you. So go ahead, start making sure you have your preps. Even if she is just a tropical storm, as like we're thinking she'll be, again, they can knock out power and can cause flooding. Um, being in Hawaii, can't rule out that, if heavy enough rain, landslides aren't happening. Still too early to know the full impacts of what she'll bring to you guys, but it's definitely looking more and more certain. So now is the time to prepare. And then for those of us who are following Invest 91L, especially in the Leeward Islands and British and US Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, you know, she hasn't died off yet, the system. She hasn't formed yet. We don't know really where she's going to go yet. So what we need to do is just continue to be wise, monitor, pay attention, and follow. And then, of course, for any of the weather needs, you guys need to be following a trusted source. Again, I'm more than happy to be that source for you guys. Feel free to like, share, and comment on my YouTube channel and follow me on my Facebook page. And we'll continue to track these two together and see what rest of the season brings as we continue to reach the peak of it. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.